Empire.
Welcome back to the All's Caps podcast, episode 4 now. I'm AP hockey writer Stephen Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. We are going to talk a little first Capitals adversity of the season, all the injuries they've dealt with. We're going to bring on Joe Yerdon, who covers the Buffalo Sabres, and talk this guy Alex Ovechkin. I don't know if you ever heard of him, Karl.
I've heard of his name a couple times.
Yeah, the guy who just keeps scoring and somehow at age 36 is leading the league in goals, and we'll get to that later. But Karl, first losing streak of the season. I know the Capitals picked up a point in Florida and kind of clawed back in that game. But kind of what do you make of kind of a little bit of the toughness that the Capitals are dealing with now? No Nick Backstrom, no TJ Oshie. Nick Dowd was out for a little bit. You're relying on rookies. What do you kind of make of what this team is going through right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's two really, really tough teams. You know, Tampa and Florida. Those are tough, and they're building too, and coming off of, you know, they're at home and then Halloween party, get on the road, and then, you know, you're in Florida where the weather's nice. It's
and the rookie party too. The rookie party was in Florida, but this week, by the way.
Okay, I didn't know if that was common knowledge there. So that's rookie party as well. That definitely makes things tough. Like when I heard that rookie party was happening there. And everybody knows who's had a night out before. It's, you know, the next day it doesn't feel good, but you can rally. But that second day, and especially if you have these trainers now, like the Whoop and the Aura Ring and stuff, you can see how your recovery is not good that second day, and it's hard to play. And you may think that you're okay, you slept for 10 hours that night or whatever it is, but there's something that goes on in your body, and you're just not all there. And the fact that this game was in Florida was as close as it was, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for the team to be able to claw a point out of that after having, you know, a bit of a run like that on and off the ice. So it's, I mean, you don't want to be losing too many games. You talk about the teams that do so good during the you know, the season, the playoffs, is they don't have many losing streaks more than 3 games. They almost never do. And it's a thing in the dressing room too. It says, you know, you don't lose 2 in a row, and if you lose 2 in a row, you definitely don't lose 3 in a row. You know, it's just a saying, and it's something that you really try and stick by. So, I mean, I think you can chalk it up to a tough set of teams on the road with, yes, some injuries for sure, but I mean, you just got to find a way to nip it right away, and the other guys need to step up. Like, you know, having some scoring by committee is really going to help this team right now. And you know, we said we're going to talk about OvI a bunch, but you can't rely on him all the time to score, even though it seems like he's going to score all the time. It's just tough to win that way.
Yeah, and we'll get back to this. I want to talk a rookie party situation first, because this is a very hockey tradition where the rookies have to pay for a dinner and all of that. Do you remember yours? Because I'm sure at the time you weren't making a whole lot of money, and you're paying for dinner for probably 15, 20 guys.
Oh yeah, I remember it very, very clearly. I was just telling this story the other day because someone had asked about it, and it was amazing. It was in Vancouver, and I didn't think I was actually going to be on the trip. And then Bruce called me last minute and just said, "Hey, like, you're coming on the trip. Like, we got you. You're coming up." And I remember just being so happy because I didn't think it was going to, but Bruce had told me before I got sent down the last time that he really wanted me to get on that trip because he knew it was Vancouver, my hometown, and rookie party. He wanted me to get that out of the way. And so, you know, always be grateful that he got that. And then, yeah, we had an amazing time. I thought I was being smart, and well, I was smart. I'll say this, because I did call my credit card company ahead of time and gave them a heads up that there was going to be some charges coming through that were unlike my spending habits. So I was I think the only guy that did that. And so I was planning on trying to pay for it as much as possible so I could earn the points, because I'm thinking, oh, sweet, this rookie dinner is going to get me a couple flights to Mexico at the end of the season, you know, with all the points we're going to gain. And so we went and had our dinner, and this is funny. So I told this story too. It was about me and Michael Neuver sitting next to each other at the table. And And, it was probably 3/4 of the way through the meal at this point. And I just said to him, I'm like, hey, newbie, I bet, I dare you to throw this asparagus, at somebody or across the room or whatever. And he's just kind of like, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. I'm like, newbie, just do it. Like, it'll be hilarious. No one will ever know. And so he kind of looks around and he's like, okay, picks it up and just hucks it across the room, and he hits Jose Theodore right in the chin, chest area. And we're both just like, holy crap, like, act cool. Don't look around, like, just whatever, just start talking. And so we're just hanging out and we're kind of looking out of the corner of our eyes, and Jose's going past every single person at that table and grabbing them by the collar and asking if it was them. And we're just like, holy smokes, hopefully he doesn't come over here. But sure enough, he made it over to us, and we were like two of the last guys that he had asked. And so he was pretty certain that was one of us that did it. And we're just thinking, oh my gosh, like, we're going to get absolutely railed here. And then all of a sudden, one of the quietest guys around, Tom Pody, sitting right beside me, he leans over and says, hey, Joe, it wasn't them. And he's like, what do you mean, Tom? It has to be these guys. It's like, no, I've been sitting here the entire time, and Tom doesn't drink. So we knew he was like in the right frame of mind. And Joe's like, he's like, you guys are so lucky. He's like, if I find out who did it, they're going to be dead. Just like, holy crap. He goes back to sit down in his spot. And then seconds later, a roasted tomato just comes flying from his spot, hits the wall, explodes everywhere. We got in so much trouble for it. And we knew we were just killing ourselves laughing after that. But we had an amazing, amazing night. I ended up paying the bill. The dinner was $30,000.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah, and I have the receipt still. I've saved it, and it is like from my waist down how long it is. I'll post a picture of it one of these days because it's so funny. It's faded now because it's been a while.
The good, then, yeah, no, these and you weren't making like real NHL money at that point either.
Well, exactly. So we were lucky that we had 4 rookies that were involved in this dinner, so we got to all split it evenly, and then we went out after, so there was still a party after that. So I think when I ended up having to pay $10,000 for my rookie dinner, and I think it got capped after that at like $7,500 because 10 is very outrageous, and 75 is outrageous as well. But it's tradition. You're gonna hopefully get 10 of those paid for at one point, or however long you play. But yeah, it's a weird tradition. It's a fun one, and it's some of the best memories that you create in hockey. It's like it was usually the first or second date I'd always look for when the schedule would come out. I'd be like, okay, when can we have rookie party and when's All-Star break? It was like the two things that you kind of need to plan right at the beginning of the season. And we're always trying to find a good city. Canadian city is nice because the dollar's less, or a place where there's not crazy tax. Like, it's funny that we think about that, but it's just like, you're always looking for a way to have the best possible night.
Yeah, I always say that to younger writers, the drinks will always come back to you. You're gonna buy a beer now, and someone's gonna buy you 10 beers over the next 10 years. It's always gonna come back to you. You're always gonna have that. The Capitals this time, they're lucky too. Same sort of thing. Alexi Protas is up. Connor McMichael, Martin Ferivari, and Hendrix Lapierre. So they same thing like you guys. They were able to kind of split the cost of an expensive Fort Lauderdale area, South Florida dinner, rather than have one guy pay for it all.
That's exactly right. And sometimes, depending on the player, like if you're a first rounder or second rounder or whatever, then yeah, they'll usually hit you for the full thing. But sometimes if it's a guy that just got called up, hasn't played before, for whatever reason, they'll get you with half now, and then half again the next year if you're there full time, or however it works. But yeah, the more guys you can have up there, the better. I think the time in Chicago, like might have been the year they won in 2010, but I think they had like 7 rookies. Troy Brouwer was telling me about it when I think it was his rookie party. He had like something like 6 or 7 rookies, and they all had to pay, whatever it was. It ended up getting quite cheap having that many guys. So yeah, the more you have, the better. Otherwise, it can be bad. I've heard of one really bad one in San Jose where one rookie he wasn't everybody's favorite, and the other guy actually was, but unfortunately for that guy, he had to take the brunt of it because they wanted to get after this one guy pretty good, and let's just say 10,000 was chump change compared to what they had to pay. So
yeah, that's 10,000 for a rookie. OvI paying 10,000 for dinner is not going to be all that big a deal. Connor McMichael paying 10,000 is a little bit different.
Yeah, oh, exactly. If things don't go the right way, you'd like to have that 10 grand back somewhere down the line.
Sure. And Connor McMichael, though, his first NHL goal against Florida. Are you eager to see him get going? Because this is a guy who he's played well, but the goals hadn't gone in for him until Thursday night.
Yeah, I am, and you know what, I'm not so worried about it because if you look back even when Tom was came in, you know, he played a fourth line role. He would grind every single night, just do whatever he had to do, and you know, wasn't always putting up a ton of numbers, but was just doing the right things and being a good teammate, and everybody loved him, and that's kind of, you know, you don't have to. It's really rare, and I guess we sometimes forget about it because we had guys like Ovi and Backy, and there's been so many good young guys, McDavid's, Eichel, that have come in and been just impact players right from the get go, and it's tough to do that. And so, if you're not thrown on the first line right away and first power play unit and all that stuff, then yeah, you're gonna have to find another way to kind of grind it out and figure out what your path is gonna be. And it's totally fine. You know, put them, just let them kind of develop, let them feel comfortable. You got a rookie part out of the way, and you're gonna really start to feel better out there. And you know, I'm just happy, yeah, to see him get a goal and hopefully start to fill it a little bit more. But not just that, but do the right things, and that's something that I think everybody else will really respect. And then, you know, like Tom, goals will come, and a more sure spot on the team, you know, or sure role on the team will get carved out for you.
I love when you bring up old names, and Tom Pody is definitely a guy we're gonna have to have on this show at some point.
I don't
Um,
know if he'll ever come on. Tom's pretty quiet. I don't know if we could even find him these days.
well, here's the thing. So I was trying to tee Jay Beagle up for some stories about you about last week. We're gonna get Jay on when the Coyotes play the Caps in April. He didn't have any stories. He just kept saying how good a guy you are. I said this is not good for the podcast.
Exactly. That's what I always try and be, as squeaky clean as possible. I mean, Beegs has it. We've got a couple funny. I guess probably I have funny ones of Jay more than he would have of me, because me and Beegs were tight in the mine. Well, we were our entire careers, but in the minors in Hershey, we were roommates in the hotels. We had some really good nights out. You know, when we were in Hershey, and even one or two when we were in Washington, and we worked out together in the summer. So I got a lot of Jay. It's whether or not he's okay with me telling them, because he's a pretty private guy. I think everybody knows he's not on social media, barely knows how to work an iPhone. So it would be really fun to have him out to see if he can let us talk about some of the things he's done.
And look, we don't even know where Jay's going to be playing by after the trade deadline. I've been saying and kind of banging the drum on the Capitals should bring Jay back, because this team needs a guy who can win faceoffs reliably, kill penalties. If there's any cap space left on earth for this team, they should bring Jay back.
Yeah, you know what? That could be a good thing for him too. Like, yeah, I feel like he would lay it all out on the line just to be back for a little bit, hang out with the guys, and do his job. You know, he was so successful. Like, the guy's career arc is just amazing. The fact that he's been able to do what he's done, coming from where he came from, and like literally climbing every rung of the ladder to get to the top. He's just one of those guys that the team. I think he would be so fired up to come back. The team would be fired up to have him. We know the fans would be fired up to have him. He's one of the all time best, and the media too. Like, he's just a
Oh, we
great
love him.
guy. So
Yeah,
yeah, nice.
he did remind me that he's older than you.
Yes, he is. He's older and wiser and stronger.
Right. We'll be right back on All's Caps. We're going to bring in Joe Yerdon, who covers the Buffalo Sabres, and talk about a couple of old Capitals favorites, Cody Eakin, Craig Anderson, of course, the Jack Eichel trade, and we'll get into some Alex Ovechkin stuff a little bit later. We'll be right back on All's Caps. Welcome back to the All's Caps podcast. I'm AP hockey writer Stephen Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner. We are joined by Joe Yerdon, who has covered the Buffalo Sabres for many years. We're going to talk a little some Capitals alumni who are having some times up in Buffalo right now. Joe, how's our old buddy Craig Anderson doing?
You know, Craig's looking like a fish out of water, man. He's not looking like a fish out of water. Geez, I should say. Maybe I need coffee this morning. He looks great. It's pretty wild to see that he looks great, considering he was about this close to retiring in the offseason. And the fact that he's the Sabre starter is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I can't believe that this is a guy who started a playoff game for the Capitals. Now you're going to see him probably in Washington on Monday night in a Sabres uniform, where at the end of free agency day, he signed a contract, and we were all kind of looking around like, I can't believe this guy got a contract. And all of a sudden now, it's like he's found the fountain of youth.
Yeah, it said something about him, I think, that he took this on, and when he signed on and he came into training camp, one of the things that he talked about was a reason for him to come to Buffalo was that he was coming on in kind of a mentor sort of role, because you had Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in camp, and that was a big opportunity for him to maybe be Anderson's backup, and seize the role. That didn't work out that way, so instead now you've got Craig Anderson saying, all right, well, forget it, I'll start now, and let's roll from there. And honestly, right now it seems it's helping Buffalo to steal some wins here early on, because in all of his starts, he's looked like the guy that I would usually see stymieing Buffalo, whether he was with Ottawa or anywhere else. It's been great. Even when he's against Montreal opening night, Habs fans were just kind of like, great, he's going to totally steal this game from us, and he shut down everybody basically.
Yeah, Karl, did you play against Craig Anderson?
Oh yeah. I remember him in Ottawa, especially. He had a couple times when he was just brick wall. There's some guys that you can vividly remember their performances, and Craig's that guy. And the thing that I think is interesting, there's been a decent amount of turnover with guys in Buffalo, and I think having a guy like Craig, just like, the guy's been through so much, not only in hockey but away from hockey, that sometimes having someone like that in the dressing room around the guys can just, I don't know, he brings a presence, a certain presence to a team. And I feel like that's got to be good for a team like Buffalo that has had some tough times, but also going through everything that was going on behind the scenes here with Jack and the team. So I don't know. I feel like that's probably a good fit. It makes sense.
Yeah, I don't like reminding Karl how old he is, but it's nice when we're talking about guys you played with and against.
Yes, exactly. That's you know what? The fact that he's still going and as a goalie, I couldn't imagine it, because some of the guys I've talked to that are goalies, their bodies are just shot. They break down so early. So to be able to continue to play and play at a high level, hats off.
Yeah, and Caps fans of a certain vintage will know Cody Eakin, a Capitals draft pick. He was traded to Dallas from Mike Ribeiro. He's in Buffalo now. I think he's been in and out of the lineup, right, Joe? Like, what's the Cody Eakin deal for his time in Buffalo?
Yeah, he's been in and out for he had a minor knock, a little injury there, but he's a guy who the opinion on him is ice cold in Buffalo after last season. I have to imagine the opinion on most guys that were on last season's Sabres team is pretty low.
That's about right.
But Eakin, you could argue and very strongly win the argument by saying Eakin was the worst player on the Sabres last season, which it sounds damning, which it kind of is. But he's been put on a line. He started off on a line with Zemgus Girgensons and Kyle Okposo this year, which normally would sound like, oh boy, that sounds like a terrible line. But Girgensons and Okposo have been two of their best, most consistent players, which again sounds like damning with faint praise, but they've been really good. So it's everything that sounds like it's being negative or being sarcastic or snarky, but it's not. And Eakin, since he's come back from the injury, it's been a little different. Of course, the Sabres have looked a little different now that they've gotten on the road and the matchups change. But Eakin's improved, and that's honestly great to see, because you don't want to see guys struggle the way he did last year, and you don't want to see guys have bad seasons like that, especially when fans are fans get. I don't know if you knew this. Sabres fans get a little angry sometimes, and you don't want to be the focus of their ire.
Yeah. Karl, what was Cody like as a teammate?
Oh, he was good. I played with him when he was pretty young, and a little bit up and down, from the minors and then in Washington. But he was one of those guys. I say he's kind of like similar to what Matthew Perreault was. Like when he came up, he was just one of the guys that the older guys wanted to hang out with, because he was, I don't know, he's fun to have around. His nickname was Squeak, and we just thought he was kind of like he would be there. We would go to do something and he would be there. You'd be playing ping pong and he would be there, just kind of watching. He's just one of those guys that was always around, and you kind of loved him for it. It was just so you can want to count on Squeak to be there, and I really like that about him. And I love that he started finding his footing, and I think had a really good time in Dallas there. And I'm curious, Joe, what was when he came into Buffalo, like, what do you think the picture was for him? What was his role supposed to be? Like, was he going to be relied on as a checker, as a grinder, or what was his role supposed to be?
I think they were looking at him as a guy who could be in that bottom six and take charge of one of those lines and be able to be a steady sort of two-way guy, but mostly focusing on the defense. And he was a guy that it seemed like a bit of an odd signing for Buffalo, because Buffalo's they were in a weird place last year where they went in with all the hope of hey, maybe Ralph Kruger's going to improve things here, things are going to take off. The COVID year and everything it was really strange, but Eakin came in and people that are into advanced stats hated the signing. People that remember how he played for Vegas the year they stormed to the final loved this signing because he scored 20 goals that year. People were like, hey, maybe we got something here. And it turned out to be not that great, but I think he was put in some spots where he wasn't really going to have success. And obviously Ralph's system did not work in Buffalo, so a lot of the ire was kind of pointed towards him, and it was pointed towards mostly Ralph Kruger, but Cody saw a fair amount of it because he just seemed like a signing that didn't make sense for Buffalo, and that's always unfair to me. But at the same point, his play didn't really help deflect any of that criticism.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I forgot he was on that Golden Knights team.
Yeah,
they went to the final.
I will say this, that when you are on a team like Vegas, it was clearly a great place to play. They had a lot of fun, and you go to the finals, and then you leave and you go to a place during COVID where you can't do anything, and you probably barely even know the guys because you can't even hang out with them a whole lot during the season. That's got to be a really, really tough position to be in. And when your team's not doing good and there's so much stuff going on, in the dressing room and even outside the dressing room, that's a tough spot to get through something mentally. So, I mean, I can understand that, but yeah, it's hard when fans and people start trying to find reasons why when a team's not doing good and they decide to pick your name, it's an uphill climb after that.
Yeah, you don't know anything about that from Montreal, do you?
Anything about it? Yeah, I can't relate.
I want Joe's thoughts on the Jack Eichel trade, but quickly, Karl, Jack Eichel is obviously not a guy that the Caps are going to see on Monday. No one in the NHL is going to see him. What do you make of him going to Vegas? As that's obviously one of the biggest stories in the NHL this week.
Oh, huge story. Yeah, I mean, this is looking at the projected lineup, and I know it's quite a bit over the cap, although
quite a bit. Yes,
now,
it is.
That projected lineup is legit. Like that is a very, very tough team to play if they can find a way to get a majority of those guys in there. And Jack is, I mean, Joe, you've seen it firsthand probably. He doesn't get enough credit for some of the things he does on the ice besides scoring goals. Like, the guy is an elite passer. He's got I would say a unique skating stride, but it's so fast. It's just the longest stride ever. It's like it never ends, and he just picks up so much speed. And if he can be happy and enjoy hockey and be healthy, this guy is going to be back to the top 5 where everybody thought that he was when he first came in the league. So it was dragging on so long that you started to go the opposite. Like, does somebody really want to take a chance on this guy? But now that the trade has happened, it's kind of like, yeah, great play. Like, they got Jack Eichel. It's so weird how your tune can change so fast,
I'm glad you mentioned his speed and the stride looking like kind of nonchalant, because when things started to turn sour here a little bit, people would see that here and be like, oh, look, this guy isn't even trying. And I said, you don't understand. Like, you almost have to sit like ice, down by the glass to be able to really appreciate how fast he's moving, because his movement is so smooth. And the only comparison I can make was to how Mariano Rivera throws a fastball, where you see the skinny dude and you're just like, how the heck is this guy doesn't throw it nearly 100? What the heck? And then he's throwing pitches, 95 miles an hour on the corner and on your hands, and there's strikes all the time. And you're just like, oh, okay, great. But I mean, in Jack's case, he's got all those tools. He's got all that ability, and you're always blown away by it. And I think it's really sad it went underappreciated here. Karl, I can't imagine what it was like trying to defend a guy like that.
It was tough. I mean, that because he's long too. He's got a long reach, long stick. He's got speed. He seems to be able to just pass the puck when it's not even in an ideal position. I don't know. I'd say that he of all the elite guys, like, I'd say he gave us quite a few fits. Even though we a lot of times found ways to win games against them, he was still that guy that just found a way to just be good, and take your all your attention away. So those guys are scary. And like I said, there's so much that goes into all sports. When you feel good and you're excited, you play good. And that's a guy, he's going to get a taste of some playoff hockey and a crazy crowd there in Vegas. I think he's going to be fine as long as he can recover from this injury. I think he's going to be okay. But it's funny. I was going to go off for a second here, talking about people saying a stride might not look like he's trying. A hilarious example of that in a practice one time with me and the defenseman. We were in Montreal. They dumped a puck in. The coaches dumped a puck in, and we had to go and pick up that puck and then quick feet around the net and make a breakout pass. It's pretty simple. And so we all went and just normal stuff. And the coach comes by and says, you guys got to move your feet faster. Like, it's gotta, you got to turn them over, crossover. And, kind of goes against a lot of the conventional talk on, like a powerful stride. And so I'm like, okay, guys, watch this. So the next one, I legit just like high knees the entire way. I probably took 30 crossovers where it should have been 6. And as soon as I got to the other side of the net, I just snapped the puck to the blue line. And the coach goes, exactly, that's exactly it. See just how Karl did it right there. Quick feet, and you'll be out of the zone in no time. I get back to the line, and all the guys' faces are red because they're trying to hold in their laughter. And it was just one of those things that is perception sometimes, right? It goes so much further. If people think that you're skating fast, then you're skating fast. If you're cross-checking guys in front of the net, you're tough. And so much of it is perception. And it's unfortunate that it can change on a player just like that. And it's darn near impossible to get out of it after.
Yeah, Joe, what should the Capitals and Capitals fans expect from the Sabres? Because thank God this team's not playing 8 times this year. But Monday night is the first in DC.
Are you saying you missed the Sabres, or what was that mean exactly?
I'm saying I miss chefs in Buffalo. I don't miss seeing the Sabres 8 times a year.
As far as what they can expect, what I've really enjoyed about the style of play that Don Granato's put in for this team is that it's aggressive all over the ice. Previous Sabres teams were kind of content to let teams rush at them, pick them up at maybe the red line and then, figure out what you do from there. The Sabres forecheck everywhere. They're up on top of everything. They're right in your face, and they try to force mistakes closer and closer to your own net than not. And to me, that's such a different way of doing things, because you'd see that occasionally here every now and again when they were pressing to try to get a goal. But trying to play that way for a full game is pretty good, because they've got a lot of guys that can forecheck really well. So that in that case, the Caps have to be smart, when they start out of their zone. They got to be ready for guys to be right in their face and to be ready to steal the puck away. And now the last few games, it's been a little bit more of a struggle. I attribute that to being on the road and not getting the matchup you want, which, I know that's a big deal for coaches, but it really seemed to be a big deal for Buffalo, because a lot of the guys that really shined early on while they were playing a ton of home games didn't look that great on the road. So if they're able to really adjust, if the Caps can adjust their lines and how they deploy them, They should be able to handle things pretty easily. Besides, that Ovechkin guy seems to have scored about 300 of his 740 goals against Buffalo.
Yeah, he quite a few, I think. Karl, do you want to give Joe your rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it. So just give you a quick rundown, Joe. It's just kind of dumb questions. I just, like I said, want to ask a few and just see what you come up with. It's all for fun. Points don't matter, but I'm going to give you a score after, anyways. To see where everything shakes out in the end here. Okay, so first one here is, if you could cover any team besides Buffalo, which team do you think it would be that you'd like to cover?
That's can I say any of the other 31 teams? Is that being too rude? You know what? The team I would pick would be the Flyers, honestly, because the Flyers beat is never boring. The Flyers are always fascinating. The fans are so intense about the Flyers, it's scary. But I love everything about how chill that room can be. And I don't know how it'll be now without Jake Voracek being there, but like I've always enjoyed every time I've either been to Philly or Philly's come to town, because if I knew if I needed to work on something that had to do with Philly, I was gonna have fun doing it. So to do that for a full season for whatever amount of time would be pretty cool.
Absolutely. I've heard that actually about the Flyers dressing room. It's something to be seen. Okay, so this one, I can relate to this a lot. I mean, I'm so happy that we have spell check, because I'll write a text out and the entire text will be corrected. So is there a certain word that you misspell all the time? For me, I'll tell you, it's restaurant. I can never spell restaurant no matter what. I do have one that's like that.
Anything that follows the I before E except after C rule gets me every time, because for whatever reason my brain just scrambles. So if I need to do perceive or receive, like these are basic words that you use in transition, and always I'm just kind of like, okay, PERCI. I do it every time. It stops me dead in my tracks, and thank God for spell check in writing, because I would probably get screamed at by editors like, can you spell this correct, please? Just God, everything else looks fine, but you can't do this one thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Karl, mine's privilege. I can never on the first chance get privilege right.
Yes, I'm trying to think about it right now. I would definitely just pass on that. I'd usually okay, next one here is, who would you say is the nicest person you know in either reporting or players that you've talked to?
Ooh, nicest. Oh man, I don't want to slight any of my writing colleagues, because everybody's been pretty nice to me. So I put everybody as the 1A through Z there. But as far as players go, Kyle Pozo is a prince of a person. Wayne Simmons is great. Drew Stafford was awesome. I like guys who are just laid back. They're cool. They realize that the press is part of the job, and they're just kind of like, all right. Usually it's just that only happens with older players, which, hey, that's fine by me. But guys like that were always really chill. You're Ryan Miller. I barely got to hang out with Ryan Miller here. He was traded, 3/4 of the way in my first season in Buffalo, but he was always really kind of the same way. It was tough to get a chance to talk to him a lot, because, game days he wouldn't talk. He wouldn't talk in the mornings. In practice, sometimes he'd be waiting him out or whatever. But those guys stick out to me as ones that are really great to talk to. Jake Voracek too. Just strictly on the business side of things, Voracek rules, because he does not censor himself whatsoever. Yeah. He just says whatever's on his mind.
So true. Okay, so you got a late night. You're trying to get a story down here. What is your late night snack? What are you going for?
Ooh, I'm a huge popcorn guy, and not press box popcorn, because press box popcorn is the bane of my existence. That, for whatever reason, popcorn smells awesome all the time, and like I make it on the stove at home. Like that's my go-to thing. But at the arena, nothing smells worse to me than the arena popcorn. And I don't. Maybe it's just the thing in Buffalo, but My God, like somebody would bring it down like between periods, and like sitting through the second period, somebody's housing some popcorn. I'm just like, it stinks. And I look over and it's popcorn. And I'm just like, oh my, how does popcorn smell bad? But unbelievable. But I guess when you're bringing it up in like a 20-pound garbage bag,
Yeah.
to carry around, I don't know. Maybe that's some inside sports stuff people don't want to hear about their popcorn.
Been made for like 2 days already, just sitting there in a garbage bag.
The one in DC is not bad, Joe. The Capital One Arena press box popcorn it passes the grade. It's okay.
I'm happy to hear that, but man, it was just like one of those things here that would irk me. Like I'm trying to not stress out about writing, because writing on to have a piece in at the buzzer is stressful, and especially if you got editors that are real ball busters, and if you're trying to get all that done and then you just get distracted by something, like just any sort of sensory distraction can just like tear your mind out of it. And the popcorn would get me every single thing. Like a game would be going on and the game had better be really exciting, so that way I'm not thinking about how bad that stuff smells.
Speaking of good smells, though, is I remember every time we come in after a game in Buffalo and the smell of the hot wings that be sitting in the room. Oh my goodness, guys, it was so funny. Trainers would already be digging into it, coaches would be digging into it. Couldn't wait to finish a game just so you could get those hot wings in you. So,
can I tell you how much it pained us? Because anytime I had to go in the visiting room after the game, you'd smell it in the hallway waiting to go into the room, and you're just like, oh my God. And I've literally never had the pizza or wings from the place that everybody seems to order from, Ricotta's. I've never got it from there, but it always smells like the greatest food on earth every time I go in. And I'll tell you what, only in 7 or 8 years, I've only ever seen one team not have, take it back, 2 teams, but the one that stood out to me was the Dallas Eakins Edmonton Oilers, where when they made a big deal about not having donuts in the press room for media, but on the road it was strictly fruits and veggies and like granola bars and stuff like that. I'm just like, man, I don't know, if I'm playing like 25 minutes a night, I kind of want some wings and pizza after the game, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at that point you're just eating anything. You're just trying to survive. Okay, so we got 2 more for you. I want to know your opinion, the 3 best players in the league not named McDavid and Crosby.
Oh man, I love. I'm a big sucker for Roman Josi. I love the way he plays defense. The same for Victor Hedman. Like I hate being that guy that just picks out defensemen in a league that's got so many great scorers. But like those 2 really stick out to me, and I absolutely love the way they play. Hedman to me is just, I get why every Swedish defenseman, and we've had a lot here in Buffalo, always refers to Hedman as a guy that they look up to. It kind of shows their age too, but like that's what impresses me about them. And honestly, if it's a guy that that I'm pumped up to cover, it's OvI. It's always been OvI for me, because that dude he's just such a freak of nature. Like he's one of those guys that you think about, like if he played in a different era. Like I think of OvI if he played in the 80s, like in Gretzky's era, would he score 130 goals a season?
Yeah.
He might.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Like, taking somebody who's just a factor of their time and putting him in an era where like guys weren't as big as him, guys didn't shoot as hard as he did, and guys that play his position didn't go out and hit people unless they were a 300 penalty minute a night or a season guy. So like guys that you can say you could pull them out of this generation, put them in another one, and they would be so much better than everybody else. Those are the guys I really like to watch. That's why Crosby and McDavid are amazing. But a guy like OvI, I can't imagine how teams in the 80s would have dealt with OvI. I'm sure they would have sent every hack after him to try to beat him. But like, yeah, OvI, Hedman, Josi. I'm kind of aged out because a lot of the guys I really like to watch have retired or moved on. But
That's
but
good.
yeah,
You're a solid defenseman too, so I can appreciate that. You're getting extra points here.
It was my position in floor hockey when I was playing in college. So yeah.
There you go. All right, last one here is, so obviously you've had some had some tough years there in Buffalo, but what still would be your favorite thing about covering hockey, covering the league? Because I mean, there's so many good things about hockey. I find it to be, obviously I'm a little biased, but I just find the league to be the most interesting, and it's tough sometimes to get things out of the players. Like you said, when you get a guy like Jake Voracek who is not so censored, it's great. And so there can be some tough answers given, I'm sure. But all that being said, what's your favorite thing about covering hockey and covering the NHL?
I've been a hockey fan since I was 3 or 4 years old. And I'm the classic example of those who can't do something else to do with it. I'm certainly not trying to teach, but writing about it was the next best thing for me. And just everything about the sport is incredible to me. The athletic ability of everybody who plays it, the high level that you have to be to do anything like that. I mean, it's always good to go back and watch. Go back and watch like even like a high school game or a junior level game or even a college game where the everything else is at a slower tempo, slower pace, and the skill isn't as good. And you get to appreciate really quick at how good the NHL is. And that's the thing for me is that I always like to say that every game is its own story, which is a good thing. I get to write game stories sometimes because that makes it a little easier to do the job. But there's that part of it, and the other part for me was talking to guys off the record, about maybe if it's not about their life, then it's about like things that they see on the ice that don't make sense to put into a story, especially a game story. But things that are good to notice about the game and learning more about it. Because I've never been more humbled than trying to than asking a question to a coach or a player about something that I saw on the ice, and I was like, how come that, why did that happen that way? And they're like, well, what you thought is completely wrong, and let me tell you why. Like that to me is always good, because I don't embarrass easily, honestly, but getting to learn more about things like that to me is great, because it keeps the brain stimulated.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, I can agree with all that stuff. And you know what? You did really good here. I'm going to go ahead and give you an 87. That puts you in the first place. We've had two guests do it, and you're in first. So congratulations on your victory so far.
That's better than I did in college, so I'll take it.
Joe's the leader in the clubhouse on this.
Leader in the clubhouse, yeah.
Joe, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back on All's Caps. Karl and I think I want to spend the next segment just talking entirely about Alex Ovechkin. So I hope everybody's okay with 10 minutes about Ovi's first 10 goals of the season. We'll be right back on All's Caps. Welcome back on All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Stephen Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. That was some nice stuff about Joe and our old buddy Cody Eakin, right, Karl?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I love hearing a few things from guys on different teams and covering different teams, because we only get to see it a little bit. So someone who's around the room and gets to hear the rumblings and stuff like that. And I had no idea that Squeak had a tough time last year.
Everyone in Buffalo had a tough time last year. Let's be fair.
Yeah, let's be fair there. But it's interesting to just hear somebody else talk about it and get some of the reasons why, and yeah, just their point of view on some stuff. He had some awesome answers in our whatever we're gonna call it, the sudden death six. Who knows? Someone has got a good name for the segment. Let us know. But love that he gave some shout outs to two defensemen and one of the answers there in OvI. So yeah, that was nice to have him on. It was good to chat.
And we talk press box popcorn. At some point, we'll bring up the hot dogs in Montreal, because that's probably the best arena food in the entire league, in my opinion.
It's definitely up there. It was hard to skate around in Montreal after the game started.
And as your story about the coaching in Montreal too, you look back at that season, you can understand a lot of why that team wasn't very good.
Oh yeah, it was rude. I mean, it was tough to deal with, but hey, we survived. We're still here to talk about it. So yeah, we'll get after it at some point. I don't need to harp on them too much, but it's also, I think it's just interesting to know how different things can be from place to place. And I've heard it from so many guys that have left Washington, how things are just completely different than what they had expected and hoped to see. And so, yeah, it's kind of an eye-opening experience to leave a place that's really great and go somewhere else where the experience just isn't the same. So we could have tons of stories about that.
I always try to say to people, like, as you're going through like a tough time in life, like as long as everybody kind of is okay and survives, it's always going to be a funny story someday. If you have a bad day and a bad thing, you're always going to have a funny story to tell at some point.
That's exactly it. It's so hard to just take yourself back from what's happening right then. And we've said that so many times, said it to my wife too. It's like, this is what's happening right now is absolutely hilarious. And she's like, it's not funny. It's not cool. And I'm like, just think about it for 1 sec. Just step back and think about what's happening. And whether it's kids going crazy or like, oh man, some funny kid stories about poop in the airport and that. It's just when you can just separate yourself for a second and realize that. I think everybody's happier that way if you can not always take yourself so seriously, especially in a business like this too, or in any business, because there's going to be people who are busting your balls and days that are bad and you're not going to feel good. So you have to just be able to laugh sometimes and you're fine in the end.
Yeah, and we've all been through a pandemic, right? How do you take yourself seriously after all this?
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone spent a lot of time with themselves, and I think that we can just kind of realize that there's things that are a little bit tougher to deal with sometimes than the whipped cream I had on my peppermint mocha yesterday that I had to scoop out with my hand. It's not such a big deal when you think about it like that.
It's not. This has been the existential segment of All's Caps, kind of talking life philosophy with Karl Alsner. Can we? I feel like every time, this is taking me behind the curtains on the other side, where whenever we're talking to Brian McClellan and we go in that little conference room at MedStar, and we always ask the third defensive pair and this and that and your goalie future and all that, and we always forget to ask about Alex Ovechkin, and it's one of those things where he's just so good that I don't know what to say. He's got 10 goals now to start the season. He is at 36 years old, somehow doing this. Can you explain this from your time playing with Alex? Can you explain kind of what makes him tick that allows him to do this?
Well, I think it's that he has so many tools. It's hard to explain. So I don't want this to sound as as a slight in any way, but his main focus is scoring goals. It's not, and he's a great passer. We can't forget to give him credit for that, but he focuses on scoring goals. He's not, let's think more. I don't know. Let's go back to Jay Beagle. He was focused on winning faceoffs, playing great D, and then trying to grind it out in the offensive zone. When he could. That's what he focused on. Then there's some guys who are, trying to focus on, playing great D, as well as trying to score goals. There's a lot going on. OvI's never been relied on heavily to play great D, play in the D zone. His job is to score those goals. And so he's been able to spend some time, it seems like, focusing on different ways to score the goals. And there's so many players in the league that are one-dimensional. I mean, I was a one-dimensional player. I was pretty much strictly defensive hockey. And you have to be able to find new ways to get better. And I don't think you look at the year that the Caps won the Cup, that was as two-dimensional, three-dimensional as you've ever seen him. He was great defensively. He was great with the puck. He was, physical, and he was scoring. And when you're able to have all those tools in your bag and then focus on which ones you want to focus on, it's been fun to see him kind of grow throughout the entire career. And everybody always says it, that you think you're going to stop him with the one-timer on the power play, or it's no secret OvI's going to shoot on the power play, one-timers, this and that. Then he goes out and does it off the rush, where he burns a guy through the legs and takes it to the cage. Or there's a time where he shoots it from just inside the blue line, or he's in front of the net grinding to tip pucks. The guy doesn't get enough credit for how many different ways he can score. So he is, mainly offensive, but he's as far from one-dimensional offensive as you can get. I tell you, one time I got in so much trouble was the first game back in Washington with the Habs, and I think we lost 5-1 or something. It was just a blowout. And I think they scored 4 goals in the first period or something like that. Anyways, I was checking OvI, and it was my first real taste of what it's like to try and push that big body around, and managed to get him out from in front of the net to maybe, I don't know, in between the hash marks, probably closer to the top of the circle. And a puck was coming from the point. I remember, okay, I'm going to lift his stick here so he can't tip it, because I know he's pretty good at tipping pucks. So I go to lift his stick up, and out of nowhere, he just lifts it up even higher so that my stick goes flying in the air. And then he's coming back and just swats at this puck, tips it straight down through the goalie's legs. And I'm just like, holy smokes, like that was a really, really good play. And that was really perfectly timed. And I didn't realize how good he was just at that facet of the game. And so it's just one of those things where he just continues to find different ways to score. And he is not just a one-timer, from that top of the circle on the power play. He is a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And congratulations to Florida Panthers goalie Spencer Knight. He's the 150th different goalie Alex Ovechkin has scored against. How many goals did you score against, Karl?
I don't even know.
A grand total of 20 in your career. So we'll count them up later.
19 is one of OvI's.
Yeah, I was actually thinking we were talking. You brought up Jay Beagle earlier, that he's on Arizona's top line right now with Liam O'Brien and Andrew Ladd, which is somehow a top line. No disrespect to Jay and those guys. But do you remember when Adam Oates put Alex Ovechkin with Joey Crabb and Jay on a line? Do you remember this game?
I don't remember that game, but that's a really interesting setup right there.
It was in Jersey. I think it was the day that Matt Hendricks' twins were born. If that helps you, if that gives you any context, I remember because Adam Oates was insistent on Alex Ovechkin being a right winger. It was just his thing. He was like, Alex Ovechkin's been playing his offside his whole career. This was back when kind of Alex was having a little bit of a downslide in his career, and he's like, fine, if you want to play on left wing, we're gonna put you with Jay Beagle and Joey Crabb. And suffice it to say, it didn't go that well.
Yeah, well, you know what? There's a lot of things Oatesy tried that were just somewhat unconventional or just different,
Yep.
And I don't know, I'm sure everybody knows about him and the curves of hockey sticks and making a change. He had a lot of things. I understand you want lefties on the left side, righties on the right. I get that, but OvI can play wherever he wants to play. Just put him out there and he's going to be okay. But clearly he likes the left side. Let him play the left side. He's a good enough player to figure it out on the offside. There's some guys that can't. I get that, but he can and leave it there. But I do remember there was times when Dale Hunter was our coach, and he we were a gritty team then. I think we would grind out victories. We would win on the power play, and we wouldn't let any other team score 5-on-5. It was I liked it. It was fun hockey for me. But I remember OvI and Semin, that they didn't like the responsibility that was being given to them from Dale, and I remember Dale came in one time and told them, he's like, you guys aren't scoring right now, so you're not goal scorers, you guys are plumbers. And plumbers plumb. And I remember OvI just being shocked by that. Like, what's a plumber? Like, I don't get it. And it was just one of those things where it's just, there's some guys that can, that will do that. But I think you just let this guy focus on scoring goals right now. It's clearly what he does best. And somebody else, you put him with a guy that plays 200 feet and let them focus on 200 feet. Let OvI focus on what he needs to.
That Dale Hunter year, and I hope you remember this game. It was the playoffs against the Rangers in the second round in 2012, and I remember this. I'm looking at the ice time count on this now. This was when Jay played 20 minutes, and Alex played 13:36. Do you remember this game at Madison Square Garden?
Oh yeah, I remember a lot of that.
You played 23:15.
Yeah, I remember that because I thought that was of all the years I was there, I thought that was the toughest team we had to play against. Like we were very hard for teams to play against. It wasn't fun hockey. I'm sure it wasn't fun to watch, but we did so many little things right. And I thought, you never know what's going to happen later on in the playoffs, but I think that was the best chance that I had to win while I was in Washington.
Yeah, and Mike Knuble said that because I think that was his last year, and he said that if you guys had beaten the Rangers, he certainly thought you guys would have beaten the Devils in the conference final. And it was Dale Hunter hockey. It was a coin flip every night because you guys were always in games. And that game where Alex played 13 minutes, he scores the power play goal as the game winner in the third period. And so all of a sudden it's like Dale Hunter, whatever he did that playoffs, it just turned to gold. Like everything worked for that team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it wasn't like there was a lot of guys that did not like it, but the game was simple. You know, we knew exactly what we were supposed to do. We had to sacrifice. You had to lay it all out there, and if you did, you usually got a good result. And if a game went, you know, with no power plays, then we might have been in trouble a little bit, or that game might have went to overtime and went on forever. But you know, the team was good enough offensively that we didn't need too many opportunities to score, and the ones that we did, that someone buried. And then, yeah, it was just, you know, it was Dale Hunter hockey, and it was short and sweet and very simple. And the game happens so fast that the more simple it can be, the easier it is for guys to play. And, you know, that's what happened. It was still, I still remember that, you know, the last, that game with the double minor to, yep. You know, was it game 6 maybe?
I think it was game 5, and you guys were about to go up in the series, and it wound up being 2-2 or 3-1 instead. Yeah, it was game 5 at Madison Square Garden, where you guys would have been up 3-2 in the series, and instead we're down 3-2.
Yeah. So I just remember that very, very clear. It was, you know, it was crushing. Let's just say that it was pretty crushing.
No, that was a bad one. But that time was like Alex had 32 goals that previous year. He wound up leading the league and winning the MVP in the lockout shortened year. But I think, and you were around for this transition and Barry Trotz coming in, I almost think Alex needed that sort of like real responsible veteran coach in Barry Trotz, and it's been full speed ahead since Barry came in.
Yeah, and that's the thing about coaching, is that you just need to know how to coach the person and the player. You know, you have to let some guys have a little bit more freedom, and it's tough too, because, you know, the players all want everybody to have accountability. They want everyone to have to, you know, if you make bad plays, then you lose ice time. If you make good plays, you're rewarded with ice time. You want it to be even, but at the same time, some guys can just make better plays. Some guys just have a little bit more skill and a little bit better vision, and you need to give them the opportunity to make mistakes. And, you know, that's how it is for young guys now, is they can go out there and they can make 3, 4, 5 mistakes a game to have 2 or 3 or 4 really good things happen in a game. And that's what a good coach and a good coaching staff can kind of figure out, is which guys thrive off of that, which guys need to be left alone and, you know, don't harp on them and let them just kind of figure it out internally, and which guys, you know, can sometimes get a little kick in the ass and get better. You know, I always said that Carly was one of those guys that if he did something bad, he'd come to the bench and he'd slam a gate, throw a water bottle, coach would say something to him, and he'd go out the next shift and he'd be unbelievable, you know, and that seemed to work for him. You know, whereas there was other guys like me, I like to figure it out on my own. I knew what I did wrong. Like nobody is harder on themselves than themselves, especially in sports. You know when you've done something wrong, you know when you've done things right. And so just let me figure it out, and I'm gonna go out there and correct it. And so yeah, when Trotzy came in, and you know, having Todd and Lane come in as well to join Foz, that coaching staff was, in my opinion, just all around solid. Like a little bit of everything. Todd was so good at getting to know the person and figuring out what helped them tick, and good with X's and O's. Barry was just a great communicator. I mean, he was so good at making you want to play good, want to play hard, and also good at giving responsibility to the other coaches so that we didn't have to hear Barry's voice all the time. You know, it's just smart. Some coaches don't ever want to stop talking. And all of a sudden you start to tune him out. So I think that he was huge for OvI, because he gave him some freedom, gave him some more responsibility, and next thing you know, he did what he did.
Yeah, and then you talked about like what a reaction of coming to the bench. Evgeny Kuznetsov told this story after the Avalanche game earlier in the year, where he scored a great goal, and then he had just a brutal turnover on a power play. Just a drop pass that went nowhere. Colorado goes the other way and scores. And he says he goes to the bench and nobody says anything to him. No one rips him, nothing like that. And he just kind of internalized it. And he's like, well, I need to score another goal to make up for it. Scores a second goal. They beat the Avalanche 6-3. And I guess that's the kind of guy Kuzi is too.
Yeah, that's it. And so you got to know that. And some coaches don't get that, and they feel the need that it's almost like you feel you have to say something so that the other guys on the bench see that yeah, okay, I'm the coach. I recognize that he just messed up. Let me make sure that all the other players know that I saw that. And it's like you're just saying something for the sake of saying it when it's not necessarily the right thing to do. And so I know as a player that if I made a mistake and I came back to the bench and no one said anything, then it was known. Everybody saw it. I wasn't hiding out there, and just go out there and do something better. And Kuzi has the ability to go out there and score a goal to make it better, and that's huge. And a lot of guys have that ability. So if you can do it, go ahead and do it. But yeah, a good coach and a good staff goes a very, very long way.
And the Capitals have seen that over the years for the good and the bad. Karl, another good episode of All's Caps. We'll be back next week, everybody, to talk. We're going to tee up Capitals Penguins. Hopefully a Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin dueling hat trick game again, I hope, on Sunday night. And we'll talk to you all next week.